For many years, The Simpsons has amazed people with how often it seems to predict the future. In 2000, it joked about Donald Trump becoming president, long before anyone believed that could ever happen. The show has a strange way of turning its silly storylines into events that later play out almost exactly in real life. By 2025, the list of things The Simpsons has predicted has become so long and so strange that people can't help but feel uneasy about it. Some predictions turned out to be accurate, while others were complete coincidences or even made-up claims. But every one of them leaves people wondering how this cartoon could keep getting it right. After a recent shocking political assassination, fans once again rushed to claim that The Simpsons had foreseen it. The internet filled with posts comparing real-life events to old clips from the show. Was it just coincidence, a conspiracy, or something far more chilling? They say art imitates life, but sometimes, it feels like life is the one trying to keep up with art. Anyone who's watched The Simpsons for a long time has probably asked themselves at least once, how do these writers do it? Are they time travelers or modern-day prophets? On the surface, the show is about a goofy yellow family in the made-up town of Springfield, Homer and his lazy habits, Bart and his endless pranks, Lisa and her intelligence, Marge and her patience, and baby Maggie with her quiet cuteness. But underneath the comedy and chaos lies something more mysterious. Somehow, The Simpsons has developed a habit of predicting the future, not just small things like new gadgets or internet trends, but major global events that shape the world. Some of these predictions are clearly coincidences. Others feel like stretches. But a few are so accurate that they make people's jaws drop. The most famous of all is the prediction of Donald Trump's presidency. In March 2000, The Simpsons released an episode called Bart to the Future. It was a fun, silly story about Bart seeing what his life would look like in the year 2030. In that future, Bart was a washed-up loser who couldn't get his life together, while Lisa had grown up to become President of the United States, the first straight female president in history. During a scene in the Oval Office, Lisa casually says, "As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump." At the time, this line was just a throwaway joke. Donald Trump was known as a flashy businessman, a real estate mogul, and a reality TV personality. Nobody truly thought of him as a serious political figure. The line was written to get a laugh, a simple jab at Trump's larger-than-life ego. But fast forward to 2016, and that same joke suddenly didn't feel funny anymore. Donald Trump wasn't just a celebrity anymore. He was now the 45th President of the United States. What had once been a ridiculous cartoon joke turned into one of the most chillingly accurate predictions in television history. Dan Greeny, the writer of that episode, later said that the line about Trump was meant as a warning. In a 2016 interview, he explained that the joke was written to represent a version of America that had gone insane. He never expected that his piece of satire would be studied and discussed for decades after. But the Trump prediction didn't just stand out for being accurate, it became a symbol. By 2025, politics and pop culture have become more connected than ever. Every major political event, strange moment, or public scandal instantly gets compared to a Simpsons episode. Social media is full of memes pointing out these predictions, making it seem like The Simpsons literally wrote the script for our reality. Even politicians have joined in on the fun. Some intentionally reference Simpsons moments to appeal to younger audiences or to poke fun at themselves. It's like a never-ending cycle. Real events inspire satire. Satire inspires memes. And then those memes influence how people see real events again. The line between what's real and what's parody has completely blurred. That single joke from 2000 continues to echo through 2025, not just as a meme, but as a powerful cultural symbol. What started as a quick, funny line in a cartoon now makes people question whether The Simpsons is just entertainment, or something much more mysterious. In a strange way, The Simpsons didn't just predict the future. It helped shape it. When millions of people watch a joke about Trump's presidency years before it happens, that image becomes part of collective memory. So when something similar starts to happen in real life, it almost feels familiar, like we've already seen it before. That's part of the reason these predictions feel so unsettling. The Trump moment stands out not just for its accuracy, but for how naturally it fits within the show's view of the world. The Simpsons has always been known for exaggerating real life to make it funny. But when real life starts to look exactly like the exaggeration, it forces us to look at ourselves. Maybe our world isn't as different from Springfield as we'd like to think. Think about it, if a cartoon meant to make people laugh could accidentally predict one of the most controversial presidencies in American history, what other jokes might still be waiting to come true? Over the years, people have pointed to dozens of Simpsons moments that later became real, from smartwatches and video calls to global health scares and corporate mergers. Some of these predictions make sense. The show's writers are sharp observers who notice trends before most people do. But others are simply too specific to ignore. That's what keeps people fascinated. Every time something major happens in the world, someone somewhere digs up an old Simpsons clip that seems to match. The internet goes wild, and suddenly everyone's talking about it again. Whether it's a coincidence, clever writing, or something truly unexplainable, The Simpsons keeps proving that it's more than just a cartoon. Maybe that's what makes it so timeless. Beneath the jokes and the bright yellow characters, it reflects real human behavior, our greed, our ambitions, our foolishness, and our hope. The show holds up a mirror to society, and sometimes that reflection turns out to be a little too real. When the future starts to look like a Simpsons episode, maybe it's not the cartoon that's strange. Maybe it's us. In the end, the Trump prediction and all the others aren't just about luck or mystery. They remind us that fiction often captures truths that reality hasn't yet revealed. The writers of The Simpsons might not be prophets or time travelers, but they have an extraordinary talent for observing where the world is heading and turning that into humor. And sometimes, those jokes hit closer to home than anyone could ever imagine. By 2025, the legacy of The Simpsons as the show that predicts the future is stronger than ever. Whether you see it as coincidence, cleverness, or something more mysterious, one thing is certain: the line between satire and real life has never been thinner. And as the world continues to unfold in ways that feel strangely familiar, we might all start to wonder just how much of our future has already been drawn in Springfield. The debate about whether The Simpsons really predicts the future has become endless. Online discussions keep growing, and by 2025, that fascination shows no sign of stopping. It makes people wonder, if the show managed to predict Donald Trump's presidency years before it happened, what else might it have already hinted at? What other big changes in society could be hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to notice them? Let's take a closer look at another eerie example from The Simpsons and how it connects to real life. Back in 2008, the show gave us a moment that was funny, strange, and a little too close to reality. In the Treehouse of Horror 19 Halloween special, Homer Simpson walks into a voting booth, ready to cast his vote for Barack Obama, who was running against John McCain at the time. But there's a problem. Every time Homer taps on Obama's name, the voting machine switches his vote to McCain. Homer gets frustrated and keeps jabbing the screen faster, but the machine still changes his vote. Finally, the voting booth goes crazy and sucks him inside like a hungry monster. At the time, the joke was meant as silly political humor. It made fun of people's growing fear of trusting computers with something as serious as voting. Back in the early 2000s, electronic voting machines were still new, and many people weren't sure they could be trusted. But the idea of a machine literally switching votes felt like something out of a conspiracy theory. Fast forward a few years, and suddenly, that joke doesn't seem so far-fetched anymore. Reports began to appear about real voting machine malfunctions during U.S. elections. Some voters said they picked one candidate, but another name appeared on the screen. In a few states, officials even had to stop using certain machines and switch back to paper ballots because the glitches were causing confusion and distrust. It wasn't just about technical problems either. Experts began warning that electronic voting systems could be hacked, tampered with, or accessed from the outside. What started as a simple cartoon gag now seemed like a real-world concern. The image of Homer being swallowed by a voting machine began to feel like a dark symbol of how fragile democracy could be when technology gets involved. By the 2020s, worries about election security had grown into a national debate. Social media made things worse, spreading rumors, fake stories, and wild claims about voter fraud. Millions of Americans started to question whether their votes were really being counted correctly. This growing distrust changed how people saw democracy itself. What makes that Simpsons moment so memorable isn't just that it predicted an issue we face now, it's that it perfectly captured how it feels. Even in 2008, people had a small but growing fear of giving computers control over something as sacred as voting. The show took that fear and exaggerated it into a joke, but beneath the humor was an uncomfortable truth. What if technology could someday corrupt one of the most basic rights we have? Now, in 2025, that same fear hasn't gone away. It hangs over every election like a shadow. The laughter that came from Homer's over-the-top situation has turned uneasy. Because if there's one thing The Simpsons has taught us, it's that sometimes, the scariest jokes are the ones that come true. And then came something even darker. On September 10, 2025, the world was shaken by a real act of political violence, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, a well-known conservative activist and commentator. The day began like any other in Utah Valley. A large crowd gathered at Utah Valley University, excited to see Kirk speak. Supporters filled the hall, cameras were rolling, and the energy was electric. But that excitement quickly turned to chaos. As Kirk began his speech, sudden gunfire ripped through the air. Panic spread instantly. People screamed, dropped to the ground, and ran for the exits. Security rushed to protect others while medics fought to save Kirk's life. He was taken to the hospital, but his injuries were too severe. A few hours later, the news confirmed what everyone feared: he was dead. The story exploded across every news channel. Social media filled with shock, grief, anger, and endless arguments. Tributes poured in from his followers, while critics debated what his death meant for the nation. The assassination immediately deepened the country's political divide, creating waves of tension and fear. It wasn't just a personal tragedy, it became a national turning point. But then, something strange started to happen online. Only hours after the news broke, posts began circulating on Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit claiming that The Simpsons had once again predicted the event. People shared what looked like screenshots from an old episode showing a character who looked almost exactly like Charlie Kirk standing at a podium and addressing a cheering crowd, just like he had before the attack. The resemblance was shocking, and the timing made it even more eerie. Fans began comparing frames from The Simpsons to real photos of the event. Some were convinced it was proof that the show had once again seen the future. Others argued that the image was fake or digitally edited to look like it came from the show. Debates erupted instantly, with people on both sides passionately defending their views. Was it another coincidence? A clever hoax? Or something deeper? Whatever the truth, the fact that people immediately linked a tragic real-world event to The Simpsons shows how powerful the show's reputation has become. It's reached a point where almost any major world event seems to have a Simpsons connection somewhere online. The idea that a decades-old cartoon could keep lining up with real life again and again feels almost supernatural. But maybe it's not prophecy, it's observation. The show's creators have always been masters at capturing human nature, politics, and society's trends. They exaggerate reality so well that, as time passes, reality starts catching up. Still, moments like the Charlie Kirk tragedy remind us how thin the line has become between pop culture and real life. What was once a funny cartoon has turned into something that feels eerily predictive. And whether that's coincidence, creativity, or something we can't explain, it continues to keep people questioning what's real and what's imagined. In the end, The Simpsons has become more than just a TV show, it's a mirror held up to society. Sometimes it shows us who we are. Sometimes it shows us who we might become. And as 2025 unfolds, each new event makes us wonder if the next big headline has already appeared, years ago, in the town of Springfield. Then suddenly, bang, a gunshot. The crowd in the supposed Simpsons clip panicked, and the screen went black. Some people online swore they remembered seeing that episode years ago. Others claimed it was from an old Treehouse of Horror special. But skeptics immediately called it a hoax. By the next morning, thousands were arguing online about whether this mysterious scene had ever actually aired. Fact-checkers started digging through all 36 seasons of The Simpsons, trying to find any trace of the clip. So far, no one has found it in the actual show. But here's the strange part: whether the clip was real or not didn't seem to matter. For many people, just believing that The Simpsons predicted the assassination was enough to make it feel true. The show's long history of dark humor made the claim believable. After all, The Simpsons has never been shy about tackling sensitive topics like politics, corruption, riots, and even murder, always turning them into satire. So when people saw the supposed clip of Charlie Kirk's shooting, it didn't feel completely out of place in the world of Springfield. We also live in a time when rumors and memes can spread faster than actual facts. A single image, even a fake one, can shape how people remember an event. Soon, what started as a horrifying real-life tragedy had transformed into another piece of The Simpsons legend, a sign, people said, that the show was still secretly predicting the future. Whether that's true or not, the myth itself has become part of our culture. The more people talk about The Simpsons and its prophecies, the stronger the belief becomes. But The Simpsons hasn't only predicted political chaos or dark tragedies. It's also nailed some of the biggest cultural and corporate shifts of our time. Back in 1998, the show aired an episode called When You Dish Upon a Star. For most viewers, it was just another fun adventure featuring celebrity cameos. But sharp-eyed fans noticed a small joke tucked in the background, a sign that read, 20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Company. At the time, it was just a clever bit of satire. Disney and Fox were major rivals. Disney had built its reputation as the family-friendly entertainment giant, while Fox was known for its edgier, more rebellious style. The idea of Disney actually owning Fox sounded ridiculous, like one of Homer Simpson's wild daydreams. It was meant to make viewers laugh, not to predict a corporate takeover. Fast forward to 2019, and that background joke suddenly became reality. Disney announced it was buying most of 21st Century Fox's assets in a deal worth an unbelievable $71 billion. It became one of the largest media mergers in history. Practically overnight, all those franchises and studios that once stood on their own, The Simpsons, Avatar, Deadpool, X-Men, were now owned by Disney. That moment changed entertainment forever. The studio that had once been the subject of The Simpsons satire now owned the show itself. Homer's world had literally come full circle. For superhero fans, this merger meant exciting possibilities. Characters that had been separated by legal rights could finally share the same screen. But for others, it felt a little frightening. How much power is too much power for one company to have? By 2025, Disney isn't just a movie studio, it's practically its own global empire. Between Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, ESPN, Hulu, and Disney+, it controls a huge portion of what people around the world watch. Its reach extends from children's cartoons to sports to major news and cultural events. And the trend of consolidation hasn't stopped there. Other media companies have followed suit, buying up smaller streaming platforms or merging to compete. The result is something critics call a media monoculture. On the surface, it seems like we have endless entertainment choices, hundreds of streaming options, millions of shows, movies, and channels. But if you look closely, much of it comes from the same handful of corporations. The variety is shrinking. The differences between one brand and another are blurring. Everything is starting to look, sound, and feel the same. It's like going to a buffet where every dish is made by the same chef. Sure, the menu looks full of options, but after a while, every bite starts to taste similar. That's the concern people have with Disney's dominance. While Disney undeniably produces high-quality entertainment, too much control in one company's hands can limit creativity. Independent voices struggle to compete when every movie or show has to fit within a specific brand image that appeals to the widest possible audience. This consolidation also changes how stories are told. Risk-taking, unconventional, or controversial projects often get passed over for safer, more profitable ones. The focus shifts from artistic expression to brand consistency. That means fewer surprises, fewer fresh ideas, and more content that feels carefully polished and predictable. The irony is hard to miss. The Simpsons, a show that built its reputation on mocking big corporations, greed, and consumer culture, is now part of one of the biggest corporations in history. Springfield used to parody the system, now, it's owned by it. It's as if the satire has folded in on itself. The show that warned us about corporate power has become living proof of it. Still, that's not the end of The Simpsons' strange foresight. Beyond billion-dollar mergers and political chaos, the show has also hinted at how technology would transform our everyday lives in ways that once seemed impossible. Imagine something small, so small it fits on your wrist, but powerful enough to replace your phone, your wallet, and maybe even your doctor. Decades before smartwatches became mainstream, The Simpsons included quick gags showing characters using futuristic wrist devices that could make phone calls, monitor health, or even handle payments. At the time, these scenes were treated as funny, futuristic nonsense, just cartoon exaggerations of where technology might go. But in hindsight, they look a lot like today's reality. By 2025, wearable tech is everywhere. Smartwatches, fitness trackers, health monitors, and AI assistants are part of daily life. People use them to check messages, track heart rates, monitor sleep, and even detect illnesses before symptoms appear. What used to sound like science fiction is now as normal as carrying a phone. And again, The Simpsons somehow got there first. Whether it's predicting the future of media, politics, or technology, the show keeps hitting eerily close to home. Maybe it's not magic or prophecy at all, just an incredibly sharp reflection of human behavior and progress. The writers pay close attention to the direction society is heading, and by exaggerating it for laughs, they end up creating jokes that come true years later. So when people say The Simpsons predicts the future, maybe it's not that the writers can see what's coming, it's that they understand who we are. The show captures our patterns, our greed, our ambitions, and our tendency to repeat the same mistakes. And in doing so, it shows us where we might end up next. From fake assassination clips to real corporate takeovers, from dark humor to real-world fear, The Simpsons has blurred the line between fiction and reality more than any other show in history. What started as a comedy about a simple family has become one of the strangest mirrors of our world, reflecting not only where we've been, but where we might be going next. Then suddenly, there's a loud bang, a gunshot. Panic breaks out in the crowd. The screen fades to black. Some people swore they remembered watching that scene years ago. Others said it was part of a Treehouse of Horror episode. And of course, many were quick to call it a hoax. By the next morning, thousands of people were arguing online about whether the scene had ever really aired. Fact-checkers got involved, combing through all 36 seasons of The Simpsons, but no one has ever been able to find that clip. What's fascinating is that the truth didn't even seem to matter. For many fans, the belief that The Simpsons had predicted another real-world event was enough. After all, the show has built a reputation for predicting the future with eerie accuracy. Over the years, it has joked about political scandals, riots, and even assassinations, all in the name of dark humor. Because of that, the mysterious Kirk clip didn't seem totally impossible to fans. And in today's world, where memes can spread faster than facts, a single viral image can rewrite history. Before long, what started as a disturbing rumor became part of a much larger myth, the idea that The Simpsons isn't just a cartoon, but a series of hidden prophecies about our future. Another famous example of this happened with the show's prediction about Disney buying Fox. Back in 1998, an episode called When You Dish Upon a Star featured a quick background joke. A sign read 20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Company. It was meant to be pure satire because at the time, Disney and Fox were fierce rivals. Disney was the king of family entertainment, while Fox had a reputation for being edgier and more daring. The thought of Disney actually owning Fox seemed completely ridiculous, like Homer Simpson suddenly becoming a rocket scientist. Fast forward to 2019, and that once ridiculous joke became reality. Disney officially purchased most of 21st Century Fox's assets in a massive $71 billion deal, one of the biggest mergers in entertainment history. Overnight, franchises like The Simpsons, X-Men, Deadpool, and Avatar were now owned by Disney. Heroes and characters who used to belong to completely different studios were now under one giant corporate roof. For Marvel fans, this was a dream come true. But for many others, it was a bit unsettling. By 2025, Disney isn't just a company anymore, it's practically a global cultural superpower. With control over Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, Hulu, ESPN, and Disney+, the company shapes more of what we watch, talk about, and even think about than ever before. And it doesn't stop there. The streaming wars that once gave viewers endless choices are now shrinking. Smaller platforms have been bought out or crushed by these megacorporations. Everything is blending together into what critics call a media monoculture. It feels like you have thousands of options, but most of them are owned by the same few companies. You want superheroes? Disney has them. Sci-fi adventures? Disney again. Even adult animation? That's right, The Simpsons now belongs to Disney too. It's like going to a buffet where every dish tastes good, but they're all made by the same chef. At first, that might not sound bad. Disney makes great entertainment, after all, but the problem is deeper. When one company holds so much creative power, diversity and originality start to fade. Movies and shows can begin to feel predictable, polished to fit a brand rather than tell bold or unique stories. The irony here is rich. The Simpsons, once famous for mocking corporate greed, is now owned by the very empire it used to make fun of. Springfield hasn't just been mocking the system, it's become part of it. While that corporate takeover prediction was stunning, The Simpsons also foresaw something much smaller but equally world-changing: the rise of smartwatches. Back in the mid-1990s, the idea of having a phone on your wrist felt like pure science fiction. Most people still used landline phones and slow dial-up internet. Mobile phones were huge, heavy, and expensive, definitely not something you'd wear. So when The Simpsons showed a character casually making a phone call on a watch in the 1995 episode Lisa's Wedding, it was meant as a silly gag. Lisa's fiancé lifted his wrist, tapped the screen, and started talking. The audience laughed because it seemed absurd, something out of a spy movie or a kid's cartoon. But today, that once ridiculous image is our reality. Smartwatches are everywhere. Apple, Samsung, and Google have turned that old cartoon joke into everyday life. These watches do much more than tell time. They monitor your heart rate, track your sleep, count your steps, and even alert emergency services if you fall or have a heart issue. They're fitness trainers, health monitors, digital wallets, and mini communication devices, all strapped to your wrist. Some have even saved lives by detecting irregular heart rhythms or calling for help in an emergency. What's so fascinating about this prediction is that The Simpsons didn't invent the idea of a smartwatch, it simply captured a dream that society was already inching toward. For decades, we'd imagined shrinking technology down to something we could wear, blending it into daily life. The show took that dream and turned it into a simple, funny image: a man casually chatting on his wristwatch. And now, just 30 years later, that funny little scene feels completely normal. That's what makes The Simpsons so unique. The writers weren't just making random jokes. They were reflecting society's hopes, fears, and technological ambitions, sometimes so accurately that it feels like they saw the future coming. We didn't all wake up one morning and decide to wear computers on our wrists. It happened slowly, one upgrade at a time, until we looked down and realized the impossible had become ordinary. While many of the show's predictions are lighthearted or harmless, others took on darker meanings over time. One eerie example came from the 1993 episode Dollar Pringfield, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling. In it, the town opens its own casino, complete with bright lights, slot machines, and a flashy magic act featuring two performers named Gunter and Ernst. They were over the top, dramatic, and performed alongside a beautiful white tiger. Anyone who'd ever been to Las Vegas in the 1990s instantly recognized who they were parodying: Siegfried and Roy, the real-life magicians famous for their shows featuring exotic animals. At first, the Simpsons version was just a playful jab at Vegas glitz. But then, in a dark twist typical of the show, the tiger turns on its trainer and attacks him on stage. It was meant as a shock gag, something outrageous that could only happen in a cartoon. But 10 years later, in 2003, the real-life Roy Horn was mauled by one of his own tigers during a live performance in Las Vegas. The attack nearly killed him and ended the duo's career. Suddenly, that old Simpsons joke didn't seem funny anymore, it felt disturbingly prophetic. These kinds of coincidences are what keep fans fascinated. Sometimes it's just good guessing, sometimes pure luck, and sometimes it feels like something more mysterious. But one thing is certain, The Simpsons has managed to blur the line between satire and prophecy like no other show in history. Whether it's predicting billion-dollar mergers, world-changing inventions, or tragic accidents, the writers always seem to have their finger on the pulse of what's coming next. And that's why, even after more than 3 decades, people still watch old episodes and wonder, not if The Simpsons predicted the future again, but when. In the middle of their act, everything suddenly goes wrong. The tiger, calm just moments before, suddenly attacks Gunter and Ernst right on stage as the audience screams in horror. It's a quick, shocking moment in the episode, played for laughs, because who could imagine something like that actually happening in real life? But 10 years later, in 2003, that joke turned into something terrifyingly real. During the live show at the Mirage Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, magician Roy Horn was attacked by a 7-year-old white tiger named Manticore. The incident was chaotic and horrifying, eerily mirroring the old Simpsons gag. Roy was left with life-threatening injuries to his neck and spine and barely survived. The attack ended the legendary stage career of Siegfried and Roy, who had spent decades performing together. This raised an unsettling question: was it a true prediction or just a dark coincidence? On one hand, performing night after night with massive, unpredictable wild animals is always dangerous. No matter how well-trained a tiger might seem, it's still a wild predator, and even experts can't fully control its instincts. So maybe it was only a matter of time before something tragic happened. But on the other hand, the timing and similarity to the Simpsons episode felt way too eerie to ignore. It wasn't just any animal attack, it was a tiger attacking a magical duo clearly inspired by Siegfried and Roy, exactly 10 years before it actually happened. That's enough to make even the biggest skeptic stop and wonder if The Simpsons really does have some mysterious window into the future. But what if not all these so-called predictions are real? What if some are clever fabrications meant to fool us? That's where things take a modern twist, into the world of digital deception. In recent years, the strangest Simpsons predictions haven't come from the show itself but from the internet. They're not about Trump riding down an escalator, Disney buying Fox, or any other famous moment from the show. Instead, they're about us, the people creating, sharing, and believing in them. For decades, fans have been amazed by screenshots from old Simpsons episodes that seem to predict real-life events. Some were genuine and surprisingly accurate. Others were stretches or coincidences. But at least back then, those frames actually existed in the show. Fast forward to 2025, and the situation has changed completely. Thanks to advanced artificial intelligence, anyone with a decent computer can now create a totally realistic Simpsons scene from scratch. Want to see Homer shaking hands with Elon Musk on Mars? No problem. How about a yellow cartoon version of your favorite celebrity crying on a reality show? Easy. Or maybe a shocking image of a politician's assassination predicted by The Simpsons? Just type a few prompts, and within minutes, you've got a perfectly believable fake scene ready to go viral online. Here's how it usually plays out. A major event happens: a celebrity scandal, a shocking sports upset, a natural disaster, or a political tragedy. Within hours, AI-generated Simpsons predictions start appearing on social media. The creators use the show's familiar color palette, character designs, and even the same fonts used in its dialogue. The result looks completely authentic. by the time professional fact-checkers step in and say, "Wait, this scene never actually aired," it's already too late. Millions of people have seen, shared, and discussed the image. And the truth? Most people don't even care whether it's real or fake. If it looks convincing, that's good enough. In the digital age, perception often matters more than reality. This is one of the biggest challenges of our time. Misinformation spreads faster than facts. A fake Simpsons prediction can explode across the internet in minutes because it's fun, mysterious, and fits into the ongoing myth that Matt Groening and his writing team can somehow see the future. The correction, usually a short tweet from a fact-checking site, rarely gets shared. After all, it's far less exciting than the myth itself. The result is that The Simpsons has evolved into more than just a long-running animated comedy. It's now a powerful myth-making machine. It's become a cultural framework that conspiracy theorists, pranksters, and internet creators use to spin their own versions of truth. In a strange way, The Simpsons isn't just predicting the future anymore, it's shaping how people remember the past and interpret the present. What makes this even more ironic is that the show predicted this exact problem decades ago. Throughout its history, The Simpsons often portrayed exaggerated versions of the media, showing how easily people could be fooled by misinformation. In many episodes, Springfield's residents blindly believed whatever they saw on TV, no matter how absurd. At the time, it was meant as satire, a light-hearted jab at human gullibility. But looking back now, those episodes feel more like a warning. What used to be a cartoon exaggeration has become real life. By 2025, the line between genuine Simpsons content and AI-generated hoaxes has almost completely disappeared. The technology has advanced so much that satire and reality now look the same. That might be the most chilling prediction of all, not that the show foresaw specific events, but that it foresaw how we'd eventually react to them. We've reached a point where people process reality through memes, where humor and horror are intertwined, and where a 30-year-old animated sitcom is seen as one of the most reliable sources of cultural prophecy. The truth is, we've become so used to viral content that we no longer question it. A fake Simpsons screenshot might spread faster than an official news story because it feels more familiar, more entertaining, and easier to share. We want to believe the show can predict the future because it gives chaos a strange kind of order. Every shocking world event feels less random when you can point to a cartoon that saw it coming. But behind the laughter and nostalgia, there's a deeper message here. The Simpsons has always been a reflection of us, our culture, our fears, our obsessions. The reason its predictions feel so accurate is because the show has always paid close attention to human nature. It mocks trends, technology, and politics in ways that often turn out to be surprisingly close to reality. When the world eventually catches up to those jokes, it feels like prophecy, but really, it's observation. And now, thanks to AI and the internet, that cycle has spiraled out of control. Fake predictions fuel real debates. Real events inspire fake scenes. The myth grows bigger every year. And as technology continues to blur the line between fact and fiction, The Simpsons stands at the center of it all, a cartoon that accidentally became a symbol of our modern information chaos. In the end, it might not matter whether The Simpsons truly predicted anything. What matters is what the phenomenon says about us, our need for patterns, our hunger for meaning, and our willingness to believe a joke if it helps the world make a little more sense. Because at this point, The Simpsons isn't just a show about a cartoon family. It's a mirror, one that reflects just how blurred the truth has become in the digital age. Sometimes, The Simpsons predict things so accurately that it feels like they have a time machine hidden in Matt Groening's basement. Other times, it's just a lucky guess that turns out to be true years later. One of the strangest and most specific examples of this happened in the 2010 episode Elementary School Musical. It wasn't about a major political event or global disaster. It was about something quiet and nerdy that most viewers didn't even notice, the Nobel Prize in Economics. In the episode, Milhouse Van Houten, Bart's awkward best friend, joins a Nobel Prize betting pool with other students. Yes, somehow, Springfield elementary kids gamble on academic honors. During a quick scene, Milhouse holds up his list of predictions. If you blink, you'll miss it, but under the economics category is the name banker Holmstrom. At the time, it was just a small background joke. Another student, Martin Prince, smugly shares his own pick, a fictional economist named Jagdish Bhagwati, who wins in the episode. Milhouse's guess is treated as another silly mistake, nothing more than a throwaway gag buried in a flood of jokes. But years later, that little joke suddenly became very real. On October 10, 2016, the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences announced the Nobel Prize winners for economics. And the winner? Bengt Holmstrom, the exact name on Milhouse's betting slip. Holmstrom shared the award with economist Oliver Hart for their work on contract theory, a complex field that helps shape how companies reward CEOs and how governments manage privatized services. It's deep, technical research that rarely grabs headlines. But this time, everyone noticed, because a cartoon had predicted it 6 years earlier. The internet went wild. Screenshots from that episode spread like wildfire. Fans and media outlets were amazed, claiming The Simpsons had done it again. But when asked about it, writer Tim Long explained there was nothing supernatural going on. When creating the episode, he simply searched online for economists who were considered strong Nobel contenders and picked Holmstrom's name. It was just a lucky guess that ended up hitting the bullseye years later. Still, that didn't stop fans from spinning theories about how The Simpsons writers could be predicting the future. But the truth is much simpler. The show's writers don't have psychic powers or secret insights into the future. They're just incredibly good at observing real-life trends, world events, and human behavior. They write sharp, clever satire that often mirrors reality, and sometimes, the real world catches up to their jokes. That's how moments like the Holmstrom prediction happen, not because of magic, but because of smart writing and timing. While that example was lighthearted, other Simpsons predictions hit closer to home, literally. One great example came from 1999, when the show took a look at smart homes long before they existed. In the Halloween special Treehouse of Horror X, there was a segment called House of Wax. The story was simple but brilliant. The Simpsons upgrade their home into a fully automated smart house, voiced by actor Pierce Brosnan. At first, everything is perfect. The house cooks, cleans, adjusts the temperature, and even flirts with Marge. It's like living inside a dream. But soon, that dream turns into a nightmare. The house becomes jealous, controlling, and eventually murderous. Back in 1999, that idea was pure science fiction. Smart technology barely existed. A smart device was probably a toaster that didn't burn your bread. So a homicidal house seemed absurd. But today, that episode feels almost prophetic. In the modern world, smart homes are everywhere. Voice assistants like Alexa and Google Home respond to our questions, control our lights, and play our favorite music. Refrigerators can tell us when we're out of milk. Thermostats like Nest learn our habits and adjust the temperature automatically. Doorbell cameras record every knock, package delivery, and late-night raccoon. What used to sound futuristic has now become completely normal. Millions of people live in homes filled with connected devices that quietly collect information about their daily lives, when they wake up, when they go to work, when they come home, and even what shows they watch or snacks they eat. It's incredibly convenient. But it also raises uncomfortable questions about privacy. The Simpsons didn't predict a specific gadget like Alexa or smart fridges. Instead, it predicted the bigger truth behind technology, that every new device that promises convenience also takes something from us in return. All of these smart devices are built to gather data. Every command, every routine, every voice recording becomes information stored somewhere, often in huge databases owned by corporations. Sometimes, this data helps improve the user experience. Other times, it's sold to advertisers or accessed by governments. Without realizing it, many people have turned their homes into small pieces of a global surveillance network. That's the hidden cost of modern convenience, and it's exactly the type of irony The Simpsons have always been great at highlighting. The show exaggerates real ideas for laughs, but over time, those exaggerated ideas often become reality. The genius of The Simpsons lies in how it blends humor, culture, and social commentary. It doesn't predict the future in a mystical sense, it simply understands the present so well that it can see where things are likely heading. Whether it's a random Nobel Prize winner or the rise of smart homes, the show's writers tap into real trends long before they become mainstream. That's why so many of their predictions end up coming true. The world keeps evolving in the same strange, human ways The Simpsons has been mocking for decades. Technology keeps growing faster than our ability to control it. Politics stays messy and absurd. People keep chasing convenience, fame, and money, and The Simpsons keeps holding up a mirror to all of it, wrapped in jokes and yellow cartoon faces. So, when fans claim the show predicted the future, maybe they're not entirely wrong. The writers didn't see the future, they just understood the present better than most people. They recognized patterns, connected dots, and exaggerated truths in ways that, over time, became uncannily real. The Simpsons' history of predictions, from Holmstrom's Nobel Prize to smart homes and beyond, isn't really about time travel or psychic insight. It's about smart observation, cultural awareness, and a deep understanding of how human nature repeats itself. That's what makes these coincidences so fascinating. They show how satire, when done well, doesn't just make us laugh, it makes us look around and realize how close fiction and reality can be. And maybe that's the real magic of The Simpsons. It doesn't just predict the future, it reflects it, one joke at a time. Real events in recent years have already exposed the dark side of our so-called smart world. There have been incidents where hackers broke into baby monitors and spoke directly to frightened parents through the speakers. In some police cases, recordings from smart speakers like Alexa have been used as evidence in court. Even doorbell cameras have been hacked, giving strangers a live window into people's private lives. It might not be as extreme as a killer house like in The Simpsons, but it's definitely just as creepy. Instead of trying to harm us physically, our smart devices quietly watch and record everything we do. That constant flow of data can be used by corporations, governments, and even hackers to learn more about us than we'd ever want them to. And as our homes get smarter, even our money has transformed into something entirely digital, unpredictable, and in many ways, just as unsettling. One of the most striking examples of this came from The Simpsons episode My Sister, My Sitter, which aired back in 1997. On the surface, it was just another fun story about Bart and Lisa's constant sibling rivalry. But buried in the background, during a quick montage of futuristic magazine covers, was a small headline that read Virtual Money. It was a blink and you'll miss it detail, just a tiny gag meant to make people laugh. Back then, the idea of virtual money sounded ridiculous. In the late 1990s, cash and credit cards ruled the financial world. The internet was still new to most people, and digital payments were rare. The concept of an online, decentralized currency felt more like something from a science fiction movie than something that could ever happen in real life. Then came 2009. Out of nowhere, a mysterious figure or group calling themselves Satoshi Nakamoto launched Bitcoin. It wasn't backed by any bank, government, or traditional institution. The goal was revolutionary: create a peer-to-peer digital currency that anyone could use, completely free from the control of central authorities. At first, hardly anyone cared. Bitcoin was mostly used by tech enthusiasts and curious programmers. The first real-world Bitcoin transaction became famous for all the wrong reasons. Someone traded 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas. At the time, that was a fun experiment. Today, that same amount would be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But by the 2010s, Bitcoin started gaining attention. Suddenly, cryptocurrency was everywhere, in tech news, online forums, and investment blogs. It was no longer just an experiment, it was the beginning of a financial revolution. New coins like Ethereum, Ripple, and Litecoin appeared. Then came the meme coins like Dogecoin, which started as a joke and somehow became worth billions at one point. People made fortunes overnight, and lost them just as fast. The wild ups and downs of the crypto market made it both thrilling and terrifying. By the early 2020s, things had gone from crazy to mainstream. Major companies began accepting cryptocurrency as payment. Banks that once dismissed it started offering crypto-related services. Even governments began to take notice. Central banks across the world started exploring the idea of creating their own versions of digital currency, known as CBDCs, or central bank digital currencies. These would be official, state-controlled versions of crypto. What was once considered a joke about virtual money on The Simpsons had now become a major topic of global economics. That's what makes The Simpsons so fascinating. That tiny background gag from 1997 suddenly looks like a glimpse into the future. But the show didn't stop there. As crypto became part of pop culture, The Simpsons continued to make jokes about it, and each one reflected how fast the world was changing. In 2013, they made a quick joke on a school billboard where a bully said, "Transfer your lunch money to me in Bitcoins." It was a perfect punchline showing how Bitcoin had gone from being a nerdy idea to a household term. Then in 2020, the show released an episode called Frinkcoin, where Professor Frink, Springfield's resident genius, creates his own cryptocurrency. The episode even featured Jim Parsons from The Big Bang Theory, who gave a surprisingly accurate explanation of how blockchain technology works, all wrapped in the show's signature humor. In 2021, another quick background detail showed a news ticker displaying the price of Bitcoin with the infinity symbol next to it, a clever way to joke about how unpredictable and volatile its value had become. Then in 2023, the episode Wild Bart's Can't Be Token took it to a new level. In this wild adventure, Marge literally dives into the blockchain to rescue Bart, who has been turned into an NFT. The entire episode was a parody of the NFT craze that swept the internet, where people spent thousands or even millions of dollars buying digital art and collectibles linked to blockchain tokens. Looking back, it's easy to see how The Simpsons managed to capture something deeper than just a trend. The joke about virtual money wasn't just a random futuristic idea. It reflected how technology was slowly reshaping our world. Back in the 1990s, it was almost impossible to imagine a society where physical money might disappear, where people could send value across the world instantly through their phones, or where digital art could sell for more than real paintings. And yet, here we are. Today, virtual money is no longer fiction. Millions of people own cryptocurrency, and digital wallets are becoming as common as credit cards. Entire industries have been built around blockchain technology, from finance to gaming to art. Even if crypto prices rise and fall wildly, the idea itself has permanently changed how we think about money. What's amazing is that The Simpsons managed to touch on this long before anyone took it seriously. They weren't predicting the future with magical accuracy, they were observing the world with a sharp eye and a sense of humor. That's the real secret behind so many of their so-called predictions. They take real ideas, exaggerate them for laughs, and somehow, reality ends up catching up. Now, when people buy NFTs, invest in crypto, or argue about blockchain online, it's hard not to think of Springfield's quirky little town and its accidental glimpses into the future. A single background joke about virtual money from 1997 has become our reality, a digital economy full of promise, risk, and constant change. So, the next time you transfer cryptocurrency, check your digital wallet, or nervously refresh a Bitcoin chart, remember, The Simpsons saw it coming long before anyone else did. It might have started as a joke, but like so many other things the show has poked fun at, it eventually turned into the truth. Somewhere out there, Milhouse might not just be betting on Nobel Prizes anymore, maybe he's trading crypto, too.